Sometimes projects just fall out of thin air. Maybe it's a referral from a friend, maybe someone saw your social media and just DM'd you, or maybe you run into someone on the street. Most of the time, all these leads are total duds and they just don't go anywhere, but sometimes they work out. This one happened to work out. This one was one of the most random projects I've ever been a part of, but it has been super fun and interesting. It's still ongoing and it's taking a lot of creative problem solving, I guess you could say. I will tell you how this started, the problems I ran into, and how I solved them. Quickly, how I first found out about this project. I love being on Lake Erie and I tend to shoot a lot of test footage just around the water. In my Lawa versus Vespid 12mm video, I mentioned that 2 people approached me with job offers while filming those tests. After following up with both of them, one completely ghosted me, but the other guy immediately responded. We were talking back and forth and I found out that he has the opportunity to shoot a pilot for a kayak fishing video on an outdoor channel. He just didn't have anyone that could shoot it. A total right place at the right time situation. After a few calls, we go out and do some tests on the kayak and I figure out if this will even work. I have never filmed anything like this before. I typically shoot in a studio or on land with plenty of space. So this is about where the problems start. The first major problem arose after the thought of bringing cameras around water, especially a kayak, in the middle of Lake Erie in January. These kayaks have motors and it's pretty generous in terms of storage space, but not enough storage space to take camera gear for it to not get wet. It's pretty low to the water, so if a wave comes or you're just going too fast and you take a wave at the wrong angle, all your gear will totally get soaked. After some initial tests, I realized that I just can't shoot this as is, and I felt really bad about it, honestly. I feel like I let this guy down and I wasted his time and really his effort for taking me out there to do these tests. So I came up with a new plan and I wanted to see how I would film this the proper way, and analyzing the format of all the similar shows on the network, this would really take 2 different setups. One on the water to capture the action, and then a separate talking head for the explanations and the intros, outros. For the main part of the show, we would need to be on the water and I would have to bring multiple Pelican cases with different, cameras and lenses and batteries and backup lav mics and memory cards. Since you're on the water, you only have what you bring, and we'd be a few miles offshore, so we can't just go back to land if we forget something. If you can't bring everything, you'll have to travel smart, so you can bring just what you need, but not too much. It's like that very weird fine line. But for sure, you could not fit this all in a kayak. I told him we would have to find a boat if we wanted to do this properly, but boats are really expensive. The next day, I woke up to a text saying he secured a camera boat. And not just any boat, the captain had a Grady White with GPS autopilot control. If you don't know anything about fishing boats, this is a very nice fishing boat. We would be able to set up home base on the boat on the water, so I could take all of my camera gear, but we could also take additional fishing gear and anything else we might need in the show. I'm much more confident filming from a boat than a kayak. I have Pelican cases for all my gear that are weather resistant, so as long as they're clipped and they fall overboard, they'll float and they should be fine. And I would be likely to remain dry as long as it didn't rain. And spoiler alert, I did the shoot and it did rain. But the major problem was out of the way, so I had to go through and figure out how to actually film this video. Before we jump into the camera setups and how I filmed everything, I'd like to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, Motion Array. Editing is by far one of the most time-consuming parts of making videos for me, and Motion Array helps speed that up. Motion Array has tons of high-quality video templates, footage, photos, music, sound effects, and more that you can use in your personal and commercial projects. Motion Array has thousands of different assets and they break it down by category, so it's easy to find exactly what you're looking for. They have motion graphic overlays, loops, animations, transitions, and more to help add interest to your videos. There are video templates that help you save time making titles, infographics, logo reveals, and transitions. You can also sort by video templates for your editor like Resolve, Premiere, After Effects, and Final Cut. They have collections of stock footage that actually looks good, and you can find clips from the same collection, so you can use multiple clips from the same scene. MotionArray also has an automated tool to help you clear copyright issues, so you can remove the headache of copyright claims. To try out MotionArray, you can sign up for a free account to access a small amount of free assets, or if you subscribe to their monthly or yearly plans, you can access their entire library for your personal and commercial projects. If you want to use the link in my description, you'll get $50 off when you subscribe today. Thank you, MotionArray, for sponsoring this video. Onto the camera setups. I can't show you many clips from the show, obviously, especially because I'm still editing it and it's not even close to being actually released yet. But I can show you some throwaway clips or some just BTS. But Chuck and I went back and forth on how this should be filmed quite a lot. Breaking down other shows on the network's channel, it seemed like there were two very distinct sections that we needed to shoot. The first one was the main part of the show, and that would be on the water, talking about the topic of the episode. This one happened to be about catching fish in cold water. It was technically freezing outside, so we had to discuss how to catch fish in a kayak in freezing water safely. So that was the point of the show. The second point would be I need to film the insert shots on land. I filmed plenty of talking head stuff before, so I wasn't really worried about that part. The part I was worried about, and the one that I needed to figure out, was shooting on the water. When thinking about shooting anything, I try to think, what will camera A be? What will camera B and C and so on? Like, what will those look like? But for this show, I honestly had no idea going into this what camera A would be, because there was two people in two separate kayaks, and for the pilot, I'd only be one operator, often not near them, with a 24-70 or a 100-400 if I could swap the lens fast enough or pick up the other camera. Again, one of the cardinal rules of filmmaking is you should never see the camera gear ever. After watching a lot of these outdoor shows on that same network, it seemed like they were totally fine with seeing camera and gear in shot. I actually reached out to the network and asked them if it's okay to see camera equipment in the shots, and they were totally fine with it. And after shooting the pilot, I now know why. There is no way to catch action before it happens. I can't have one camera rolling on two people at one time, so I knew I was gonna have to get a little creative. To start with the cameras, I knew I was going to have some cameras facing each person on the kayak. So to have these cameras be our A cameras hurt my ego a little bit to have an action camera be an A camera. But I knew if for some reason I wasn't near the kayaks and something happened, I would have to have at least one camera on them at all times to catch that action. And I knew if that was the case, then I needed another camera in case, I needed to cut between action. If I needed to, cut space out of the middle of the camera, I just didn't want to jump cut. I wanted to have another camera to cut between. So as a safety, I had another camera behind them. We went with two Insta360 cameras. One was my Insta360 One X2, and one was Chuck's X3. The X3 was noticeably better, but it still wasn't as clear as the Osmo Actions once you start zooming around. Even with the lesser quality, there were a few times in the edit where this saved me. I will touch on this a little bit later. When it came to powering all of these cameras, I definitely didn't want my A cameras to shut off. So I just chucked a V-mount battery on the front and back of each of the kayaks, so 4 V-mounts total. And I put a 256 gig memory card, and we were filming in 2K. That got us 8 hours. The final deliverable was 1080p, so filming 2K, I was able to zoom around in post a little bit. For the main camera, I was using my FX6 with a 24-70 and my EasyRig Minimax. I've filmed my dad fishing, just like casual family videos before, and I knew it was a lot of standing around waiting for something to happen for a very long time. But once someone catches a fish, it's absolute chaos. So the EasyRig was really the MVP of this shoot. You can't take a tripod on a boat. It's just too big and you can't really put it anywhere. But you do need some kind of camera support. So honestly, I don't think I could have done this one without the EasyRig. With all these different cameras rolling at once, I knew I was going to have a bad time if I did not sync all of my cameras with timecode. And one of the reasons I chose these Osmo Actions was they can accept timecode just as my FX6 can. So that made syncing everything together very easy. And a side note about, getting kind of like selects on the fly while I'm filming. Whenever I knew something was going to be used in the final edit, I would flag it on my FX6. So whenever I was looking through the clips, I would know just look for the clips that are flagged, and those are the clips that I will have some kind of a keeper with. I was also using the cache recording with 30 seconds. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but the feature of the FX6 where you can always record, and then as soon as you press record, it'll like start the clip 30 seconds ago. That was a complete lifesaver with this because I didn't want to just, roll on someone fishing for like an hour for them not to do anything. Syncing everything together with timecode and then using flags on the FX6 really streamlined things here. By far, the most important part of the show was audio. I know we were going to be cycling through a lot of different questionable quality cameras sometimes. So as long as the audio was crystal clear, people would be more okay with this. For audio, I wanted everything to be synced up with timecode, so I went with my track ease on each person. And I also went with backup audio in case something happened to the track ease. So I went with a set of DJI mics that were recording internally and sending a signal to my FX6 so I could like listen to people even if they were a couple hundred feet or a couple hundred yards away on the water. And because the DJI mics, it was very cold while we were out filming, and the DJI mics battery life was not as optimal as I would say they would be in normal filming conditions. So I needed to have I brought my backup set of backup mics to have them swap out. So as one was charging, I could have a fresh set ready to go. So I would never be without a set of backup mics. It was low 30s and windy, and these batteries just were dying quickly. I kept an eye on my battery life on my FX6. Thankfully, you can still see the battery level on these cameras or on the microphones. So that was pretty nice. To avoid interference though, if you're going to be double laving people, you have to be very careful to put the recorders and the lavs as far away from each other as you possibly could. If you don't, you're going to have some hiss. And I positioned them and was very clear on mic swaps of the backup audio. Put this microphone here, put the other microphone here. Luckily the track ease, both the track ease lasted the entire day with like, I don't know how the battery life is so good on these, but they have half battery life left when the day was over. So that was like 6 or 8 hours of runtime, and they still had half a battery left and plenty of space on the internal memory cards. So the trackies were great. I didn't need backup audio, but I know if I did not use this, something would have happened and I would have missed out on some audio. Because we're going to be swapping between so many cameras, I was going to try to use my FX6 as the main camera. So in your mind, maybe you're going to associate the main quality with the main camera and then cycle between the Osmo Actions and then very quick, rapid clips of the 360 cameras behind you because those were the lowest quality. They were still acceptable for 1080p delivery because we were filming 4K, but still it looked a little distorted. It looked like early GoPro footage, like GoPro 1, very fisheye, distorted. Even if you zoom in, you're going to lose quality. So I was trying to just nail the audio quality, and having backup microphones really helped here. Even though I didn't need them, it still gave me a lot of peace of mind, especially as a one-man band. Here are a few rapid fire problems that I had while I was working on this, either editing or out shooting. And the first one was, I knew that the 360 cameras did not have timecode, but I just left them rolling all day and would sync them in post. I thought I would just be able to, like, based on the waveform, sync the first clip and then drag all the other clips behind it, and it would just fall into place, just like a normal action camera would. However, Insta360s are not the same because every 4-ish gigabytes, they have to stop recording and then start recording a new clip on the SD card. But when it does that, there is like a sometimes 5, sometimes 15-second delay when the camera is saving that clip. So I don't know if the new Insta360s have like a better buffer on their camera, but there were 2 times that 5 to 15-second buffer between the clips, I needed to use that Insta360 footage because the kayaks were too far away, and sure enough, something happened. The main Osmo action on the front of the kayak caught it, but the Insta360 in the back was buffering. The other kayak was too far away to have the 360 footage be usable. So I had to use my far away shot of the kayak. Like, I could still see the kayak. I was shooting in 4K, so I could punch in on the 1080p timeline. I had to stabilize it, and it didn't look as good as it could have if the backup 360 camera was just working as intended. So I think we'll have to address that. Maybe I'll rent a new 360 camera and just film, or if you guys know this would be even better. If you have a newer Insta360 camera, newer than the X3, and you're using a 256 or a 512 and just letting it run for like 6 hours, does it have to save, wait 10 to 15 seconds, and then start the new clip? You would think that this would not be a big deal, but sure enough, this burned me twice. Thankfully, we had it to begin with. It did get me out of a couple binds in the edit, but overall, if this show does get picked up, this can't happen because it just can't happen. We'll have to address that with some other thing. If the show gets picked up, we'll probably, get a little bit better of cameras anyways, but still, this is something that I want to address. The next thing I wrote down was, when using telephotos, the waves from the boat are very difficult to sustain long clips. My EasyRig has the stable arm, so that was able to help a little bit with the waves, but if the kayaks are too far away and there's big waves, there's just no way to balance out just holding the FX6 stable enough to counteract the waves when the kayaks are also getting tossed around by waves, on a 100 to 400. Like, it's almost impossible. So that is something that I need to figure out. I do have my Tilta, I think it's the Tilta Alien, the car rig. I had the idea of like putting speed rail on the front of the boat. If the series gets picked up, I'll probably end up doing this, but just put speed rail on the front of the boat with the Tilta Hydra and a gimbal and my FX3, and just use my DJI transmitter to force control move the camera. But I was not getting all of that out for the pilot. This is like a proof of concept. So if this goes well, in the future, there's the next level of production we can go to. But for this, I didn't want to buy any cameras. I just wanted to use what I had and go out there and, with minimal setup time, we were moving very quickly, miking people up and going. So that was one of the things. What did I even start talking about? The telephoto lens. So lensing is a very difficult thing to do. Maybe I will have to incorporate more gimbals. The next thing, this is a little granular, but positioning the kayaks to the boat. Like I said, the boat had fantastic GPS control and it had the trolling motor on it. So it was taking points from a map and counteracting the current. So it was just going in a straight line. However, the kayaks obviously don't have that. So they're getting tossed around by the waves a lot more. And the waves are carrying the kayaks faster than the boat is moving. Even if you turn the GPS lock off, the kayaks have to kind of move a little faster. Well, they get moved around by the current faster, but the motors are slower. So it's hard to counteract that. You would think just move the boat closer. However, the boat creates a wake, so you can't just fly up next to them because now you're gonna toss them around even more. And if they have each kayak had 2 lines in the water. So now you're like potentially messing up the lines and tangling them. So that comes with its own set of problems. So this is a unique one that maybe I have to talk like to maybe the boat captain, like follow them with the trolling motor so it's a little bit slower, but get as close as you can without disrupting them. That's a super granular one. Maybe I shouldn't even put it in this video, but there are so many interesting problems whenever you're going to a new project. If I'm going to film a talking head, no problem. I know the light setup. I know what cameras and lenses to already choose. Filming kayaks from a boat halfway to Canada in Lake Erie is a pretty unique problem. And I love solving those creative problems and seeing how we can do things. And it really does help when you have a collaborative partner. This project is very far off from what I typically shoot, and I've had a lot of fun overcoming the challenges. And this has been one of my favorite projects, even if it's kind of like chaotic filming. It's cool to have a unique set of problems to figure out and work through. I'm not saying this is a perfect solution, but for a pilot and a proof of concept, I feel like we have a very strong starting point. If the show does get picked up, we can invest more into the cameras and the audio, and in the front of each kayak, maybe we put an FX30 with a wider lens in the front of each one, and the Osmo actions get moved to the back, and maybe we have like another one for a different angle. Depending on the budget, I'll hire another audio person, a camera operator, maybe a PA to like stay in the boat or like on land to get things ready if we need to. We can improve things for now, but this is just the gear that I have without spending any more money. If you guys would like to know more about this shoot, let me know in the comments down below. I have more videos planned around this, whether the show gets picked up or not. So be sure to subscribe and check back for those at a later date. That's all for this one. I'm gonna go play some Escape from Tarkov because I haven't stopped working in like a week. But that's all for this one. Goodbye.